Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to the course Environmental Impact Assessment. In this series of law, policy and institutional arrangements for EIA systems, today we will be covering two subtopics. So, we will be looking at transportation and then we will also look at landscape and visuals. So, what are the policies and all kind of arrangements for that, and what kind of standards are there. So, accordingly, our coverage would be, we'll be looking at policies and guidance on EIA for transport projects. So, what are the policies and guidelines involved? Then we'll look at policy to reduce transport impacts and improve accessibility. So, what kind of policies are being adopted? And you should recollect our initial lectures on how we were understanding policies and different modes and techniques which are used. So, in the landscape and visual section, we'll again look at the legislation on landscape and visual, and then look at some of the guidance on landscape and visual section this side, and we'll look at some of the examples as well. So, our learning outcomes, expected learning outcomes, are that after completion of this particular session, you should be able to identify policies and guidelines related with transport projects when you undertake EIA for transport projects, and then you should be able to discuss the policy to reduce transport impacts and how what kind of policies are adopted for improving the accessibility. Then in the landscape and visual section, again you are expected to identify legislation and then identify guidance and then discuss these with the help of examples of various guidance documents. So, looking at the first section on the transport project, so in this we will look at the policy and guidelines on EIA for this segment. So, we see that there are a number of institutions both at the national level and international levels that have developed guidance on transport policy, and they have been trying to promote sustainable transport, and they have also given guidelines on methods and different approaches which one should adopt to evaluate environmental impacts. So, we see that roads have they have range of environmental impacts, and the ranges would depend on land use, like the kind of land use is there and in what context it is, like the for example, if it is in the road is coming up in an urban setting, the impact would be of different nature, and when the road is coming in the rural setup, the impact would be of different nature, and the land use might also change accordingly. So, you will also see that environmental impact will also vary with the construction of the new roads. So, where you are doing your new road construction, the nature of environmental impact would vary, and then it would vary also with the regeneration project. So, if you are regenerating, you are dealing with regeneration projects where you are uplifting or improving the existing roads, then also the nature of impact would be different. So, you keep that in mind, and then see that how different impacts vary as per the nature of the project. So, we see that the World Bank extends a guide, and through the guide they indicate how to consider environment in the planning and the management process of the road, and they show how to establish clear communication between different work and interest group related with the project. So, when you are dealing with roads, you will have different groups which will be involved, and then there will be different domain, and there will be different agencies which will be involved. So how do you take care of that? So that all will come here. And then guidebook also shows how to implement the environmental strategies and how to follow up on the proposed environmental strategies. So what kind, how you're going to implement those strategies in your project, and then how you'll take care of the follow-up, like when the project is done, how you're going to really follow up that those environmental strategies are followed or not. So through the guide, we see 5 types of environmental impact assessments for road, you see, which are like you see project specific EIA. So you must have heard about this project specific EIA. So in that project specific EIA, in this you have individual new roads or public transport infrastructure are assessed through in the category of project specific EIA. So the project specific environmental assessment is the most common form of EIA. So this is very commonly used format of EIA, where we review individual new projects, road project. And we have, like, this is a very usual and commonly used one, so we have considerable experience in this regard, and we really know how to handle most of the aspect of it. Conceptually, if we see EIA facilitates identification of potential impacts on the local and the immediate environment within the context of region or a sector. So conceptually, when we handle EIA, that is what we see, what will be the potential impact of it on the local and the immediate environment of a particular project on the region, or particularly on that sector. So so this project specific EIA addresses to this basic requirement and addresses the practice of EIA. So there are benefits of project specific EIA, though it's very common, it's a simplistic approach and it handles only single individual projects, but there are benefits of this. So it allows road agencies to make clear of themselves about what is the environmental status of the proposed site. So what is the situation there? So, and identify any environmental impacts that may arise, that may come up because of the proposed road project. So this allows the authority to raise alarm on any design problems if they see. So if there is any problem with the project, they can rectify it. So it also allows the rectification of this at an initial stage. And because of these steps, it also facilitates better integration of the project into the existing environment. So other type of EIA we learn through the guidance include programmatic EIA. So in this programmatic EIA, we examine number of individual projects that may be delivered together as a package of a program. So you might have heard about the program that we are going to build, number of roads and so on in particular area. So it is seen in all totality. So programmatic EIA have been developed for consideration of groups of projects in a cumulative manner, which are similar in type and scope and scale, and whose impacts are generally well understood. So we know about it, they are similar in nature. So we need not do one individual EIA for that, so we can do it for the complete group of projects. Examples of this include sewage treatment facilities, road maintenance and rehabilitation projects, and small bridge constructions. So another type is the summary environmental evaluation, so which is also like the rapid assessment. So in which the focus is on specific categories of impact and their mitigation. So this type of study focuses on specific impacts and their mitigation. The results of this type of study can take a variety of forms. So they are sometimes presented as self-standing mitigation plan, or you can also have environmental management plan. So, the screening, scoping, and consultants task are normally used to decide this summary environmental assessment here. So, another type what we see is the regional EIA. So, under this regional EIA, we look at the planned projects within a specified geographical area. So, this geographical area can be at the subnational level or any like it can be at the district level, state level, or at the intra-district levels or intra-state level, and those kind of projects are evaluated under this regional EIA. So, regional EIA are used to assess environmental effects relating to the broad spatial context of the proposed project. And then the main purpose of this, the main purpose is to assess the cumulative and the other potential effects. So, what will happen cumulatively, taking all together and looking at the impact at the regional level, and what kind of potential effects will happen of the projects on this particular region, geographical area which we are looking at. And these area again could be the administrative region or the environmental region. So, whichever boundary we define here. Examples of these regional EIA could be you can have environmental areas like coastal zones, you can have forest region, or you can have watershed region, or you can have certain administrative boundary, like you can look at the municipality level, or you can look at the state level or district level. So, you see that regional environmental assessment can cover one project or several multi-sectoral project, and one can see all of them together in particular geographical context. So, in the end of all these categories, we see sectorial EIA. So, through this, all the projects of certain type are strategically evaluated. So, you take all within the sector, what kind of range, what projects will come, and you evaluate them. For example, transport infrastructure in relatively larger geographical areas. So, all the transportation infrastructure would be evaluated for its total impact. So, the main idea of the sectorial EIA is to look at the macro scale. So, that means the gross impact, like getting a gross sense, like totally what is really going to happen in this area. So, you assess, you evaluate the micro scale scenario here, and through this process you formulate sound environmentally based strategies on what kind of sustainable development strategies have to be taken. So, we see that sectorial EIA highlights the benefits and cost of undertaking sector-wise action by comparing one strategy with the another. So, it allows you to compare what is a better strategy and so on. And particularly in context of roads, the sectorial EIA might address a sector-wide investment in a relatively larger geographical area. So, you can also evaluate like how that when the sector is making certain investments, so they can evaluate what kind of impact it will have. So, this was about the World Bank. Now, you see that European Investment Bank also follows similar strategies. So, they under their policy they only finance those kind of projects which are more on the sustainability line. So, all the transportation which are on the which address to sustainability, so they only finance those kind of projects. For example, you have rail project, all public transportation projects they would fund. So, rail project, water and public passenger transport. And also they have been supporting intermodal transport system, one connecting to the another, and how people can have seamless movement. And then also teleworking by supporting information and communication technology. So, then there can be less need for really commuting. And they also support projects for balanced regional development, and also kind of projects of urban regeneration and development and so on. So you see that they have certain strategies where they support such kind of projects where sustainability addressed. So European Investment Bank calculates the economic returns of its project using internationally accepted methods. And then they look at and they not only look at the financial viability aspect, but they also look at the socio-economic cost and benefits which the project brings. So that way they address to the larger environmental and social goals. So you see that bank highlights environmental issues at the global and the regional levels. So the range of issues which we have already discussed in the environmental status. So the bank addresses these issues, concerns through international cooperation. So they all have those cooperation, and then they support each other for this range of projects. So now moving on, we see that different countries have national guidance. For instance, we see in India, government has prepared manuals for different sector, and those kind of supports are created. And these we see guidelines has been created for an EIA for highway projects, and how this can be done. So you see that this manual is created to help the project proponent and consultant in preparation of EIA report, and it also helps the the regulatory authority to how they can really review the report, and as well as inform the public about various environmental issues. So with this manual, they are not only helping the proponent to prepare the EIA reports, but also the authority to guide them how the review has to be taken place, at the same time also informing public about what to expect, what range of problems one project or highway project might bring in. This EIA guideline, the manual, addresses related environmental concerns for specific sector. So you see a lot of manuals there. So the this one consists of 12 chapters, considering to generic structure as per EIA notification. So you can see the EIA manual here, which you can see that what kind of general information for the highway project has to be given, and then the environmental clearance process, and what kind of terms of reference would be there, and what will be the validity of the environmental clearance. Then you would look at project description, analysis of alternatives, how the alternatives have to be seen, what kind of considerations have to be taken, and how you set up the baseline study, description of the environment, and then you are going to look at the potential impact, and then how environmental monitoring program, the EMP, what kind of impact is happening, and how you're going to mitigate those, and what extra studies you would undertake. So you see this manual is available for highway, and the link is also provided to you for further if you wish to download and see that. So this manual provides you it also gives you the checklist, it also gives you the general standards for discharge of effluents, and then it also gives you a code of practice for highway projects, so what you're going to refer to, and it also guides people about the international good practices. So it provides how you have to look at the planning and designing aspect, construction management aspect, and how you're going to take care of the sensitive receptors. So that all things are provided here. And you also see that you have national guidance document on Green National Highway Corridor project as well. And this is provided to deal with the environmental issues during the planning, design, and construction of roads under the project. So you see the environmental management framework is also provided. we see that other countries also provide national guidance. So we can see here Botswana provides guidance here. It is environmental impact assessment of road infrastructure, and this particular guidance gives methodology on how to undertake environmental impact assessment for the road project. So you can see here planning and environmental impact assessment of road infrastructure. The objective of this guidance is to achieve a comprehensive technical basis for decision making. So the decision can be taken on the basis of a comprehensive technical study, and then it would also integrate all the aspects of it, and it's taken care with the due process. You also see TAG, web-based transport analysis guidance. It's as a guidance and as a toolkit it works, and this has software tools, and it allows you to do transportation modeling here and allows you to have review of all the methods here. So that was all the guidelines which are available. Now we'll look at what kind of policies are adopted to reduce transport impacts and improve the accessibility. So you can reflect that whenever the development projects comes, it generates substantial level of new travels and traffic, development projects of transport. So always there are chances of new travel and traffic arising out of it. So these days, as a part of good practice across the world, it's a practice to have transport statement. So the transport statement is prepared, or you have transport assessment. So these are done for any kind of project because there are certain kind of impacts which are going to happen. So when these things are prepared, it allows the decision makers, the ones who decide whether the project has to come or not, so they can make certain decisions, and they ensure that whatever has come up, they have made every effort to make this, they are making every effort, they ensure that every effort has been made to reduce the need of the project. So at the first place, one should see that there should be no need for the new project or major infrastructure to come up. So they try to review that those efforts have been made, and then also to see that project could have been handled with other means also, but by just not creating a new project. And safety and suitability is also duly considered. So they also review that enough has been checked to see that mixing and clubbing of land use has been done to minimize the travel demand, and then and also use has been made of sustainable transport modes. We are seeing that most of the jurisdictions these days are making significant move towards like reducing the travel need, and then also looking at the sustainable transport mode, and that can be done by mixing and clubbing of the land use. And then emphasis also put on how to have efficient delivery of goods and supplies, and how to prioritize pedestrians and cyclists, and then how to give high quality public transport facilities. So you must be seeing how comparatively from the previous time you have a better quality of public transportation, and then how to create safe and secure layouts, and then also you have for the e-vehicles you have enough charging plug-ins, and then you also promote ultra low emission vehicles, and then you also take care of people with disability, and you don't take care in only one mode, but you take care of that in all modes of transport. So that was our first part, where we dealt about the transportation, and then what kind of guidance are there, what kind of references are available to undertake impact evaluation in those areas. So now moving into the second part of our lecture today. So we're going to look at the landscape and visual part. So for in that we'll look at the legislation components. So till now the landscape legislation is normally limited to regulation that protect landscape designation. So you see, for example, in US, you will see here that National Park Service Organic Act of 1916, they have set up national park, and then the purpose of setting up these national park is to conserve the scenery and the natural and historic objectives and the wildlife therein, and to provide for enjoyment of the same in such a manner and by such means as will leave them unimpaired. So no kind of damage happens to that, and it allows the enjoyment to the future generation as well. So you see how even scenery is given importance here. So likewise, we find UK National Park and access to the Countryside Act 1949, and this act covers national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauties in the country, and where they focus on conservation and enhancement of the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage of their landscape. So this act makes provisions for national park, and it also makes establishment of National Park Commission, and then it assigns them roles and responsibility. It gives them certain powers, how they can take care of it. So we also see National Park Act 1980 in New Zealand, so where national parks are designated by the act, and they are considered as areas of New Zealand that contains scenery of such distinctive quality and ecological systems or natural features so beautiful, unique and scientifically important that their preservation is in the national interest. So they highlight their beauty, and then they have acts to protect those places. So according to the provision, efforts are made to maintain the park, and then also to maintain the indigenous plants, and also look at the biological organisms. So in India, we see that we do not focus on the landscape, but our prime focus is on the wildlife. We see Wildlife Protection Act 1972 gave the powers to the central and the state governments to establish protected areas. So we have already seen these, how we have sanctuaries, national park, conservation reserves and so on for protecting the animal and plant species in that particular region, areas or place. So we have not highlighted at the core of it the visual or the landscape part, but at the core of it is the wildlife. We also find the European Landscape Convention, also known as Florence Convention, for protection, management and planning of the landscapes. Further looking into the guidance, how to undertake that landscape and visual, and further we'll be also looking in the methods section. So right now we are just covering the guidance here. So you have guidance you see that Forest Service and Department of Transportation, which is now known as Federal Highway Administration in USA, has developed visual impact assessment and visual resource management. It was developed in 1970s. So you find them that these guidelines are available. So if you're interested to do that, or you're required to do that, then you can refer to these. We also find standards by Forest Design Services, which gives standards for integration of aesthetic consideration in large-scale resource management decisions. So what standards have to be followed. And then we also see guidance in UK, where you have Landscape Institute and Institution of Environmental Management and Assessment guidelines. These guidelines are for landscape and visual impact assessment. So here it provides guidelines to how to achieve consistency, credibility and effectiveness in landscape and visual impact assessments. So this is also available, and I have also given you the link for downloading purpose, and you can look at the table of contents. Then you also find advice note on photography and photo montage in landscape and visual impact assessment. So how by photography and photo montage you can undertake landscape and visual impact assessment. So you also see Hong Kong Environmental Protection Department has also developed guidance note on landscape and visual impact assessment. Then you also see New Zealand Institute of Landscape Architect has prepared similar guidelines for on visual simulations. So you can do simulations and see. And then the purpose of this guideline is to promote best practice standards and procedure and preparation and use of visual simulation by landscape professionals. So you can see here how it allows to see the existing stimulated view and then as-built view through these practice guidance. Then you also find IFC standard. They also emphasize the significance of landscape, and it is covered under Performance Standard 6 under Biodiversity, Conservation and Natural Resources. So you can find these here as well. And then PS6 gives importance on the landscape, and it has certain points like for certain projects values are assigned for these biodiversity and ecosystem services, which we have already discussed. So I'm going to not cover in detail here. And we also find other guidance document on landscape and visual impact assessment related with specific type of development such as roads and renewable energy. So let us look at the guidance document on landscape and visual impact assessment related to roads. So we're going to just quickly look at some of the examples documents which are there. These are sectorial specific guidelines which are there. So you have for the purpose of roads, you have US Federal Highway Administration has developed a guidelines for visual assessment of highway projects. So I've also given you the link here, and you can see the table of contents where you can see what kind of regulatory contexts are there, what basics are there, what kind of different phases would be there, and what you're supposed to undertake in those phases. So you also find with regards to roads, you find US National Cooperative Highway Research Program has also developed evaluation of methodologies for visual impact assessments. So you can also find different kind of visual impact assessments. In UK, you see that Department of Transport Design Manual for Roads and Bridges Index is available. You also see web tag by UK Department of Transport, and this guidance include and provides link to advise on how to set objectives and identify problems, how to develop potential solutions and create a transport model for appraisal of alternative solutions. So how you can really evaluate the solutions also, and how you can conduct appraisal that meets the requirements of the Department of Transport. So you can see here these are all available guidelines for the purpose. And then you see New South Wales Roads and Maritime Services also provides guidelines for landscape character and visual impact assessment. And this document, the purpose of this document is to guide the preparation of landscape character and visual impact assessment for road and maritime work. We see that Indian government has also launched its Green Highway Plantation, Transplantation, Beautification and Maintenance Policy in 2015. The aim of the policy is to help the environment, help local communities and generate employment by planting trees along all the highways in the country. You must have noticed while traveling the kind of change which has come up. So now looking at the guidance document on landscape and visual impact assessment related with renewable energy. So you see the Scottish Natural Heritage Guidelines is there. It provides guidelines on environmental impacts of wind farms and small scale hydroelectric schemes. Then you also find guidance on siting and designing wind farms, and then you also find guidance on visual representation of wind farms. And then you also see planning guidance for development of large scale ground mounted solar PV systems also. So those are also provided. I've given you the link as well. And then you also see Northern Ireland Environmental Agency has also developed a guidance on wind energy development, which includes a section on landscape and visual impact assessment. And then you also find supplementary planning guidance on wind energy, which is developed by Northern Ireland landscape companies. So you can see here. Then you also see US Department of Agriculture Forest Service has also developed a handbook for scenery management. And the scenery management system is tool for integrating the benefits, values, desires and preferences regarding aesthetics and scenery for all levels of land management planning. So all right, so we'll end here. So this was about the landscape and visual impact assessment. So summarizing what we covered today. So we looked at in the transport section, we looked at the policies and guidelines which are there, and then we also looked at the policies generally adopted for reducing the impact of transportation and then to improve the accessibility part. Then we looked at landscape and visuals, and then we identified various legislations, and then we also looked at various guidance, and then we also looked at some sectorial specific guidance on how to take care, how to conduct landscape and visual assessment. So these were the references for today, and these are the suggested watch and read. So you can look at more of the literature and videos in this regard. And please feel free to ask questions. Let us know about any concerns you have. Do share your opinions, experiences, and suggestions. Looking forward to interacting and co-learning with you while exploring EIA. Thank you.